Our opponent plays... Oh, so this is more of an Enchantress deck. So we see Sithis Harvest Hand. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, gain 1 life and draw a card. And they're going deep on their Utopia Sprawls here. Four copies in the deck, 3 copies on the battlefield. Hello and welcome, everybody. Today we are doing something that so far I have not seen anybody doing. And that is, we are incorporating the new hot tech for Amulet, Urza's Saga. And if you're not familiar with this card, then check out my leak from last week where we played Urza Saga and Amulet for the first time on the channel. Today we are including this card in a Elvish Reclaimer build of Amulet. And in fact, I actually made a post where I just narrowly missed getting that 5-0 with Reclaimer Amulet, losing only to Anthony Priolo, Apriolo 1 on regular Amulet, of course. And this list is a little different than the one that we're playing today. In this list, I decided to try something pretty experimental. I cut all of the flagstones from the deck and decided to use Reclaimer as just a repeatable, way to sacrifice lands to find more unique ones or better ones in the matchups, a way to guarantee that we have access to our bounce lands, sort of like Expedition Map would do, and a way to search up our Bog and Ghost Quarter and Cavern. However, that's a little too experimental for me, so if you want to check out that list and give it a spin, then feel free to do so. But today we're playing more of a traditional, quote-unquote, Reclaimer list with some differences, and let's talk about the Reclaimer list in general here. So, if you're familiar with the card Elvish Reclaimer and previous builds with Elvish Reclaimer, you'll know that it's common for the Reclaimer builds to play 1 less bounce land than the stock Amulet lists. In this case, usually you see these 9 bounce lands plus 1 Gruul Turf in the stock Amulet lists that are playing Saga. And here we are doing the same thing. We're trimming down on 1 copy of our bounce land to get access to the extra land slots that we need for things like flagstones and Temple Gardens and whatnot. And we are playing those, of course, to go along with our Reclaimer. However, we are also playing the Ghost Quarter and the Bojuka Bog in the main deck, as opposed to in the sideboard. I generally like this move in such an open format like Modern, even when we have powerful things such as turn 3 Titans off of Saga, Azusa, Amulet, and a Titan, and a bounce land, of course. Even though we have some very powerful openings, and we're very frequently killing our opponent with double Amulet in this particular build where it has Urza Saga. That said, we can still sometimes find ourselves in situations where we want to search for Bog against control opponents, against opponents utilizing their graveyard, against Thopter Foundry combo, for example, and then Ghost Quarter as well for the Tron matchup, and other matchups where Ghost Quarter becomes relevant, like Eldrazi, things like that. And it's also very relevant against the Mirror, where you can blow up your opponent's Urza Saga that they think is going to set them up with an Amulet. Boom, you get a Ghost Quarter in play, get rid of it, and set your opponent back a ton. So that's kind of the idea. We also have a bit of a light white splash here. In fact, we're playing Kabira Crossroads over the Radiant Fountain that would usually see play. The only difference between the two is that Crossroads enters tapped and taps for a white, and Radiant Fountain enters untapped and taps for a colorless. This, of course, is going to help us cast our white spells, which we do play 3 in the sideboard. A new one that I've been pretty high on recently, I think it's quite good, and probably better than Path in the sideboard of this particular deck, Prismatic Ending, X and a white for a sorcery that says Converge, exile target non-land permanent if its mana value is less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast this spell. So, just on 1 white and a cast of Prismatic Ending, you can hit all kinds of relevant things, from Death Shadow to Amulet of Vigor to various 1-drops from Prowess and that kind of thing. You can hit random artifacts like Pentad Prisms against Urza, or, it can hit Ensnaring Bridge on 3 once you pump X up to 2. Of course, the idea with this one is that we can use it to answer a number of problematic things, anywhere from 2 to 3 mana Planeswalkers like Renin 6 and Ashiok, to 1 mana Death Shadows and 2 mana Scourge of the Skyclaves, to, I've used this to answer Meddling Mage, I use it to answer my opponent's turn 1 Amulet. Prismatic Ending does a lot for the deck, and I'm very interested in trying this one out in the sideboard here for our Reclaimer list. Usually this slot would be taken by Path to Exile, and we're trying something else in that slot. And today we are also playing 3 copies of Chalice of the Void in the sideboard. We're using the Masterpiece version, believe it or not, because it is actually the cheapest one currently on Magic Online, so I might hold on to these just because. But anyways, Chalice of the Void is an XX artifact that enters the battlefield with X counters on it And whenever a player casts a spell with a mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on the Chalice of the Void, that spell is countered. So for 2 mana, you play it, it comes into play with 1 charge counter, and then we'll counter everything that costs 1 from that point on. And of course, Urza Saga will put our amulets and other 1 mana artifacts like Relic and Pithy Needle directly into play so that it has no interaction with Chalice. But these are particularly for the Rhinos matchup. Recently, in almost every single league I've played, I've faced against at least one opponent playing Shardless Agent and Crashing Footfalls, the 0 mana make 2 4/4 tramplers. It's a very strong deck right now, and even with Chalices, I have dropped some games against them, so these are mainly for that matchup. They can also be put on 2 or 1 against the opposing control decks like Esper and Blue-White. They can be very good there. And Chalice is mainly there for that tech. It's also going to be good against Burn and Prowess. You drop it on 1, and sure, maybe you can't cast any Reclaimers, Grazers, or Amulets you draw after that point, but the fact is the Chalice is just going to be countering so many of your opponent's relevant spells that it hopefully shouldn't matter. So anyways, we're definitely trying some stuff out here. We've got, of course, our Relic of Progenitus and Pithy Needle. I've chosen to go with a Relic over the Grafdigger's Cage, mainly because Grafdigger's Cage doesn't do anything against the Living Index of the World, and Relic of Progenitus does. It also cycles itself against control, getting us another card, something that Grafdigger's Cage doesn't do, as they can just bounce the Grafdigger's Cage with a Cryptic or a Teferi Minus or whatever, and still utilize their Snapcaster Mage. Relic, at the very least, can help us dig for a threat in those matchups, so we do have Relic here. Everything else is pretty standard. We've got our 1 Azusa, and we're playing 2 Grazes in the main board, something that I generally like in the Reclaimer list, especially with Saga, as you can play a turn 1 Forest, Arboreal Grazer, put into play a Saga, and turn 2 you can still activate the Saga if you have an untapped source like a Garenbrig or whatever. And that lets you do both things that you want to do on turn 1 as far as acceleration is concerned, and so that's why I like the 2nd Grazer over the 2nd Azusa. We do have the 3rd Grazer in the board for the aggressive matchups, if they even exist. It's been a while since I got paired against Burn, and especially Prowess, so we'll see. Regardless, this list I feel has a lot of potential. It's a lot of fun, as hopefully you'll see. And yeah, I don't have much else to say. Let me know what you think about the list, and if you've been playing some Reclaimers with Urza Saga, or even if you can't get access to Saga, let me know what you've been doing, and maybe we'll play a list without Saga just to see if it can stand up to the test of the current Modern League status. So, regardless, I will see you guys here for match 1. Alrighty, let's hop in here for the match. See what the pairing is. Is this another Teamer Rhinos deck? I swear, I get paired against those every single time. We're playing against Morley Bin. Not familiar with that username, and we have a double Amulet draw. We get to play Amulet on 1 and on 2, but we don't have a bounce land. I think we're still supposed to keep this, however. We don't have a map, so if we draw a Saga, then we're not going to be able to set up a bounce land with it. That said, if we draw a Reclaimer, then it'll be good. If we even just draw like a Garenbrig, we have Titan mana, so it's, I think it's a keep. And of course, we have the ever-important upkeep stop, as I learned recently from Apriolo and Monitz, actually, when I played my previous league, that you can activate Reclaimer in your upkeep to cycle into a Saga, and then get the 2nd Saga trigger when you go to your main phase, of course, when you move through your draw step, that is. And that way, it's almost as if the Saga had been out in play the entire time, and that is definitely something that's very cool to do, and we're playing against a very likely a Heliod combo deck, so not really the best possible deck to be playing against, but we'll see what we can do against this opponent. I guess we're playing out a Temple Garden and playing Amulet, Grazer, Flagstones. Yeah. And then we can hold this Temple Garden maybe to make 2 mana. The turn that we play it, we can play it tapped and have it trigger double Amulet, so that's like the idea, I guess. We'll play an Amulet. We'll play a Grazer, and we'll put in the Flagstones. If we draw a bounce land, we just have Titan, and can kill them. And otherwise, there's not much we can do, so we are 1 away from Titan mana just by playing the Temple Garden. So if we draw a land that is not a bounce land, then we can play it, and then the turn after have Titan off of Temple Garden making 2 mana, thanks to the double Amulets. And of course, then we just do the Sunhome, the Slayer Stronghold, activate twice, Sunhome to give it double strike, and that's exactly 20, so hopefully we get to do that. Hopefully our opponent doesn't just play Heliod here, and then we brick, and then next turn they play Spike Feeder, and we just die. Although, it's worth noting that Prismatic End Prismatic Ending. I don't know the exact name of the card. Yeah, Prismatic Ending can actually exile Heliod in this matchup, which is very interesting. Don't know if that makes it good enough, but it's definitely something to consider. Our opponent plays... Oh, so this is more of an Enchantress deck. So we see Sithis Harvest Hand. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, gain 1 life and draw a card. And they're going deep on their Utopia Sprawls here. Four copies in the deck, 3 copies on the battlefield. Alright, bounce land. We want a bounce land off the top. Saga. Interesting. Well, I mean, I guess that lets us Titan this upcoming turn, thanks to playing Temple Garden tapped. So we'll play it and just Titan them next turn, I guess, and hope they don't have Path in the main board. Or just in general. Even if they had it in the main board, that doesn't mean that they have it in hand. Sterling Grove. Other enchantments you control have Shroud. Pay 1 and sacrifice it, search for enchantment, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. They're holding up 1 mana that is not white, so I guess they're at enough of a life total, since they're gaining life from all these, and they also have Ghostly Prison, which is vaguely annoying. So we can't actually kill them this turn. Reclaimer. Okay. I mean, we're still supposed to get Titan in play here, I'm fairly certain. We can play Reclaimer in our second main phase here. So yeah, we'll play the Temple Garden tapped. We'll float our mana here with the Amulets. So let's just float both, because don't need to figure out which one of them is being untapped here. Alright, we'll Pact. Get a Titan. Cast the Titan. We'll get to the Garrison and the Stronghold, and we'll use 2 of it to pay for the attack and leave 1 Stronghold activation unactivated, I suppose you could say. So we untap these 2 and go ahead for 1 activation. Then we untap these 2 again. And I think we just pick up the Stronghold here. Sure. I don't know, maybe that's wrong. Maybe we could have Strongholded the Reclaimer. I didn't even think about that. Whatever. We'll go to combat. We'll swing with the Titan. And we'll pay the 2 that we were expertly leaving up, of course. Yep. And here we, I guess, want a Tolari West and a land that casts Reclaimer. So probably Tolari West. And I guess just Breeding Pool works. I don't think we have another green land that's particularly interesting. We could also just get Breeding Pool and a Ghost Quarter, or Tolari West and a Ghost Quarter, and kill this double sprawled forest. That seems like a good plan. Alright, I think we want the Ghost Quarter here for sure. The other one is kind of debatable. We're going to be getting a second Amulet in play this upcoming turn. Don't know how relevant that is. It's probably just Tolari West here, right? Just in case we draw the bounce land. That we won't be able to play Reclaimer, however. Although we can play Reclaimer and haste it with a Stronghold and be able to activate it immediately, so it's pretty debatable. I don't think it really matters that much. It could even just be a Valakut. I think I want to get the Reclaimer in play now, though, perhaps. So I guess just Ghost Quarter and Breeding Pool is fine. And we will not pay the life, of course. Okay, I freaked out for a second because I thought I got Forest and Breeding Pool, but the Ghost Quarter's over here, so we're good. No big deal. Untap these 2. We'll fire off the Ghost Quarter on this land right here. Deny our opponent of 2 mana this upcoming turn. Hopefully it's relevant. I guess this does let them potentially path our Titan if they have a basic plains, but I guess we definitely should have done this after damage. Bit of a punt there, but they get a Forest. Cool. And yeah, we'll play Reclaimer and path it back. Didn't get punished. Does our opponent just not have a basic plains? That would be very strange to me. We do have to pay for our Summoners Pact, but we have plenty of green sources to do so, so not a big deal. They cast another Sterling Grove. Okay. We'll just yield through this turn. To be honest, I'm now thinking there's a lot of things that we could have played around. We could have played around our opponent having a Wrath of God type effect with a second white source by not playing the Reclaimer. There's a lot of things we could have done a little differently there. I guess all roads lead to home anyways, but still. We want explosives here. We want prismatic endings to hit their various enchantments, of course. Force of Vigor seems very good. Foundation Breaker, likewise. I don't mind Tracker as a way to get underneath Path to Exile, or force them to path something that isn't a Titan, but I don't think it's really necessary. Reclaimer doesn't seem like it's super relevant in this matchup, so I think we can shave a couple. And, one pact can go. They might have some sort of enchantment way to make us regret casting Summoner's Pact. I don't know what that would be, to be honest. I'm thinking of Suppression Field, but that doesn't actually affect Summoner's Pact, although it would affect being able to activate our Slayer Stronghold or something like that, but I think it's fine to shave one pact. We only need one copy of Titan, most likely, to go the distance, especially since Titan sets up a second Titan by searching for T-West and Bounce Land, so that seems fine. If we're trimming on Reclaimers, I feel comfortable trimming one Flagstones. Although that said, we do want maximum white sources for prismatic endings, so maybe not. We don't need the Bog here, that's for sure. We don't need the Cavern, either. Still gotta trim two more, huh? I guess it can be... It could just be the other two Reclaimers, in all honesty. Because I think we're gonna win through setting up Primeval Titan, and not necessarily through activating Dryad, although both are feasible. I think I'm okay trimming a couple more Reclaimers, to be honest. I think I'd rather have the Grazers to potentially enable the turn 3 Titan off of our Saga. So, we'll go this way. Might have to play around our opponent having Force of Vigor themselves. Not sure how well we can play around that, to be honest. Every time an opponent has Force of Vigored me, it's been pretty devastating, so. And this hand is a turn 3 Dryad, turn 4 Titan kind of hand, and I don't really like those kinds of hands, so I'm going to throw it back. This hand is really not much better. I mean, we have a turn 3 Prismatic Ending. Now, I think we're mulliganing to try to find a turn 1 Amulet or Saga, so. Our opponent has mulligan to 6 as well. They kept 6, it looks like. We'll go one further. There we go. We have some amulets. We have a bounce hand to go with. Yeah, I mean, we're definitely keeping this and bottoming, I guess, the explosives and the breaker, as any ramp spell lets this be a turn 2 Titan, so. Okay, not any ramp spell. Dryad would not, but Grazer or Azusa lets this be a turn 2 Titan, which is also the reason why I prefer to have Grazer over Reclaimer in this matchup. If we draw Grazer, we'll be completely rewarded. Nope, no Grazer. That's fine. We'll just play our turn 1 Amulet. See if our opponent is playing Prismatic Ending, because they could have that card and hit our Amulet. We'll see, though. If they don't, and we top deck a Summoner's Pact, or an Azusa, or a Grazer, then we just get to Titan them and kill them on the spot. They play the 2-mana 2/3. It says, creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. Then they can pay 4 to make a land into an XX elemental creature with trample and haste, where X is the number of enchantments they control. It's a strange one for them to still have in their deck against us. And there's the Grazer. Remember what I was saying about having the Grazers fist? I kind of feel like this is representing a Path to Exile, though. Our opponent has 3 cards. We're not going to have to Summoner's Pact at all, though. So what we could do is put Titan into play, and instead of attacking with it, we could just search for Simic Growth Chamber Tellari West, and be able to immediately transmute, and then they'd have to path this Titan, and we have another Titan ready to go the next turn, so I do think that's going to be the play. We'll put this Amulet into play. We'll hit 5 to make sure there's no yields, as is customary. I like to yield on 1 Amulet draws, but it can be very much a way to backfire horribly if you have a draw that has only 1 Amulet, and then you top deck the second Amulet. I've definitely lost games by accident that way. By accidentally just yielding through all my Amulet triggers because I didn't realize I had yield set. Don't want to do that. That said, I still think it makes sense to yield to a single Amulet draw. Our opponent just scoops it up. Well, anyways, I'm going to stop talking on my soapbox here about yielding to single Amulet draws. And yeah, I don't know if that got to showcase much of our deck. At the very least, I feel validated in keeping Grazer over Reclaimer for Game 2 there, as it definitely showed the reason why when we just played out that Game 2. But anyways, hopefully you found that interesting. Let me know what you think about the deck, and if you have any experience playing Reclaimer and a Saga meta, and I will see you guys for Match 2. This is Redface Menace, signing off.